I know what you're thinking. Freak. Geek. Nerd. We've heard it all. We're cosplayers. A couple times every year, we make our pilgrimage to the cons.
Welcome to the regional qualifier for the national competition.
The federal government has declared a state of martial law and has warned all citizens to stay indoors. As the now confirmed outbreak begins to spread outside the border of Los Angeles.
Great, so the whole city is zombies?
What are you guys doing in your costumes?
We about to go cross this godforsaken city, and we gonna fight whatever shit be out there.
Yeah, I think that it was important. I mean, I'm a huge zombie fan, so Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, go through the list. I kind of wanted to keep it similar, but put a slight twist on it. But I do believe that you need to have some reason why the zombies begin, why the zombie apocalypse begins. You can't just... It would be an interesting concept to drop in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, but given the twist we put on it, that is important to kind of start with that and then let the chaos unfold from that kind of juncture. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole idea of the main four characters was to have four, people we would meet at Comic-Con or representative of ourselves and all of the fandoms that I personally love, that I know Erin loves as well. And just to kind of show what those people would do in the middle of a zombie apocalypse and how their take on the apocalypse would be. One of the notable things is Erin's character in the movie, Claire, is a zombie fan. So that's why they keep referring back to her about, what should we be expecting? And I always thought that was an interesting thing to have people who actually were immersed in the zombie subculture experiencing a zombie apocalypse for themselves.
It was insanely fun. I mean, I think that I got to experience the gamut of emotions from like the highest of highs to the lowest of lows on screen. And I had the joy of being the very first of our cast to get the first zombie kill, spoiler, and the first blood splatter to the face, which was pretty epic on our set. And so I couldn't imagine a better role. It was so much fun.
Yeah, the blood spray was actually created by our makeup artist, and I hadn't experienced this prior to this film. Now, I've heard of squibs, of course. We didn't have the budget for anything like that, but he just got a can that you would use to spray weed killer and then mix down the blood to make it less viscous, put it in the weed kill, pumped it up, and would just be off camera spraying, the actors in the face over and over and over again.
It's quite a shock too, because I wear contacts, and so you're just sitting there like, you're tasting it, it's in your eye, it's getting everywhere. You don't really know what's happening, but
Oh, and it has a smell.
Oh God.
It smells bad.
It gets worse progressively. The older it gets, the more like stained and dried it gets, like even sickly sweet. It's pretty nasty.
Oh yeah, there was never not enough blood. So I kept getting the look from the makeup artist. Are we good? Keep going.
Yeah, maybe an alternative title to this movie could be There Will Be Blood.
I was letting him know. I was like, make sure you aim for the mouth in particular. I feel like that'd be very effective. Right. The mechanic was, so there's a larger mechanic that we had to cut out. I mean, the movie's already a little bit on the lengthy side. We had a more expansive opening that will be included in the DVD on the bonus features that explains the lore of this rock and the history of our characters a little bit more, still keeping things mysterious, opening it up for volume 2, volume 3. But the idea being the initial wish sets off the zombie apocalypse. And then from there, they really are just like regular zombies. Now, of course, the twist at the end has another more deep-rooted kind of mythos. Like, it's vernacular within the film in terms of ZombieCon Vol.2 or 3, and it has a kind of an anime twist to why that twist happened. But again, that won't even be discovered by our characters until further into the series. Well, we had initially started all of the main cast. We worked together on a number of projects prior to the movie. We actually tried to create a alternative to YouTube with like $10,000, which, that did not work. But we did film a bunch of short series and a number of podcasts, a number of different things. So we had all ingratiated ourselves into basically that shooting group prior to the film. And when writing the film, you kind of knew who worked together, how things were going to kind of play out, and who these characters were so well that it was the obvious choice to make them the 4 leads. And yeah, it was both a casting decision while simultaneously being one of necessity due to the low budget limitations of the film and long-term friendships that we had built up with these folks for years prior to that. Well, Manny himself and he's gotten a lot of criticism from people reviewing the film that they thought his character was a bit of an ass, which obviously is intentional. In real life, is the absolute nicest guy in the entire world. He went to Full Sail University in Florida for film, for writing specifically, came out to Los Angeles. We started working together, actually brought him on as an intern when we first started our production company, and he became ingratiated in the team, ended up starring in a couple of those shows that I had spoken briefly about previously, and then was like the obvious choice to play the kind of central nerd-esque character just because he seemed like he was both innocent and had like a kind of there was something going on in the background where, he might have been operating on 2 different levels, outwardly and inwardly, that I just thought was perfect for that character especially. Punky and I first met in Los Angeles, like in acting class, years and years prior to this. And then we moved in together, we're living together for a while, and then she went off and did her own thing, obviously massively successful in the world of comedy. But her persona in real life and her just like go get 'em attitude, take no bullshit type of mentality, obviously formed the character of Punky quite a bit. So it wasn't, I think, too far of a stretch, but I mean, some of those scenes, especially with the pump up speech, I mean, the acting is just top notch.
Oh yeah.
Met him actually like 6 months after I met Punky at that same acting workshop class in Los Angeles. Punky and I were in the first round of that. We did a second round of it. And that's where we met Christian. And since then, he's been part of the team, has been involved in a whole number of projects, and yeah, just a good close friend.
Well, we did shoot this film quite a while ago. We've had a long production journey. So, I mean, time has definitely separated myself from the character too. But Claire is definitely way more reactive. And I think wears her feelings on her sleeves. I mean, I'm definitely a very emotional person, but especially for the character of Claire, I just wanted to bring always that emotion to the present. She's not really trying to hide and keep things bottled up. She's had a rough life. There's a whole backstory with her where she's an orphan. Parents got hit by a drunk driver. So a very deep emotional role there as well. But when she's happy, she's happy. When she's terrified, she's terrified. And when she's thinking someone's calling her or being an asshole, she's going to call them out on it. So that way, we're very different. I think I keep things a little bit more close to the chest, but it was really fun to play. For the most part, I definitely was screaming. And I will say we created, all 4 of us, quite a lot of grief for our beloved, much breathed editor over here in working with the sound issues on this film. I mean, we had It was very low budget, of course, and so only certain of the scenes we had individual mic packs. A lot of the times it was just the boom op. And so I would say that we really shifted a lot of the work on that end to the editor.
Yeah, and the boom op, who was his first time ever holding a microphone, was for this film. He's a good friend of mine, Chad Tolson. It's got some great music out there, so check him out if you'd like. But he also was the one attaching all of the individual mics to the actors. We had 4 radio transmitters and 4 lavalier microphones. But anyone who's done anything with a lavalier before could tell you, and I know it's become much more common now, especially with live streaming and stuff, it is difficult to get them situated correctly, hidden correctly, and make sure you're not getting a lot of sound over the actual audio. So a lot of the lavalier stuff kind of fell off, especially in the costumes, because the costumes were quite extensive and had a lot of different moving layers and were connected using, and I wish I could have sewn them on, but a lot of the armor pieces were connected using Velcro, which is a terrible choice for audio purposes.
The things you learn. Actually, I have a funny story about that as well. So many times on set, especially once the apocalypse happens and we're all costumed up in our armor, which was attached with this Velcro, in between takes, the 4 rockets would just be helping each other put back on our armor pieces. So, we'd be running back, all right, we gotta get back to 1. Everyone's running back, and you just grab whatever pieces of armor you find on the ground, and by a couple days in, we knew exactly where everyone's armor went on their body. You just slap it on as fast as you can, continue. It was hilarious.
My first ever cosplay was as Indiana Jones, like 5 years old, walking around Disney World, going to see the Indiana Jones stunt show spectacular. So. And then it kind of just grew from there. And the whole cosplay idea actually came up because I was walking through my brother's house, and he collects movie props, like every movie prop you could imagine. And I saw the Captain America shield on the wall, and I was like, that would be a really cool way to have, to fight zombies. And I was like, I've never seen a movie about cosplayers, really. And then everything kind of just started clicking and falling into place. And it was like, okay, this could be cool, because cosplayers have a myriad of tools at their disposal. And I mean, even the EVA foam armor, which is usually covered in something called Plasti-Dip, which is like, an industrial plastic spray. It provides a good amount of protection. I tested it. I tried to bite it. And I was like, this is actually might be too strong. Because I don't know if the human jaw, even unlocking its full potential in a zombie outbreak where they're not feeling pain or anything, I don't know if they'd actually be able to bite through, EVA foam, multi-layered, covered in Plasti-Dip. And so I was like, and obviously you bring in the swords and the myriad of weapons that every cosplayer's got in their arsenal. I mean, it seemed like a no-brainer. It seemed like, why hasn't someone done this before? So yeah, again, just falls into place one piece after another.
We had quite a great journey in post-production, touring so many different Southern California conventions. And so we had booths, and we would film cosplay videos, and 2 or 3 times we got to preview screen the movie, working copies of it with obviously the perfect audience, cosplayers, anime fans, super fans. And so we're deeply involved with the cosplay scene in California in particular. But the very first cosplay that I was obsessed with was, I just am a huge Harry Potter nerd. I always have been, always will be. Had the wand, had the broomstick, had the robes. And I would make my mom and dad, my sister and I both, go to the midnight opening of the bookstore when the books would be released, every single one, and we would just be reading them through the nights, basically as long until we would just fall asleep from exhaustion. So Harry Potter was my first super fandom. I think that the movie series was absolutely incredible, and other than Lord of the Rings, maybe the best adaptation that there ever has been with books to movies. So I'm approaching with trepidation, always, gonna be giving it a shot because I love Harry Potter. I'll watch anything with it. But yeah, definitely a little nervous. It's perfection. I don't know how you could make it any more perfect.
So that was actually tacked on nearer to the end. We had a ZombieCon initially kind of put out there. That was always intended to be a series, but ZombieCon Part 1, ZombieCon Part 2 wasn't going to slap the moniker, Volume 1 on it, and kind of leave it more mysterious. But there was a slight snafu with IMDb after getting it into a couple film festivals for some preview screenings prior to the film's completion. And IMDb doesn't like you to be nominated or win awards. And if you do, they list it as completed and, released, which it wasn't, because it was still in post-production, still working on it. And basically, once we got through to the sales agent and the distributor side of things, they needed it to be updated for IMDb to be listed as 2024 when the film was actually completed, as opposed to 2018. Hence the retitling of the movie, repackaging of the poster and stuff to differentiate it, which it is a totally different movie from the 2018 version. I mean, the editing has been completely redone. Scenes have been cut, scenes have been added, insert shots have been added, all the audio has been changed. But that really came about because of that distribution process, which actually turned out to be great, because I love the Volume 1. I think it should have been there from the beginning. So it's kind of one of those things where things just kind of work out for unknown reasons.
And that volumes 2, 3, 4, and 5 are already written and ready to go.
Yeah. It was a little bit of everyone's. I definitely took the head and kind of put in a little bit of stuff, but at the end of the day, it needed to be in the characters' handwriting and characters' words. So each of the characters got to go up there and add a little detail or add a little piece of something. I think the schematics for the cosplay armor that's up there, I kind of drew in and, put the measurements next to it. But the personal anecdotes and additions were added by Manny, Erin, and Christian, or Punky Christian, all 4 of them.
And I also just looked at a Snapchat that Manny had taken, Rocket had taken behind the scenes while he was filling that out. And he was laughing, saying, Claire's organic food and sexy anime girl poster, and saying, oh no, that one's never going to make it in here. The director, Kyle, will definitely take off the sexy girl anime poster. Nope, it made it in.
I don't know if he knew this, but the director actually put that poster up. I was like, first off, if you're a fan of anime, there are a lot of, sexy anime girls out there. It's a huge part of the fandom and appeal. So I was like, I mean, you've got to add, this has to be represented somewhere in the apartment. No, it was always intended to have that gravitas and to kind of build you in, again, set up much like an anime OP, right? You see a little bit of action at the very beginning. Something's going to go crazy. Build you in with the characters, explain the world, give you a slight mystery and a quirk or a change, that being the rock, and then let things slowly kind of progress into a more serious tone and raising the stakes. And I honestly, in the writing process, would have loved to off one of the main characters, because I think it would have shot the stakes through the roof. But I had volume 2, 3, 4, 5 in mind, and I'm like, I don't want to kill any of my main characters. So now I'm not saying that they don't die in volume 2, 3, or 4, or 5, but wanted to at least get through one where you had all 4. So it was very much intentional, and it really wanted it to feel like the characters were both in peril, and that it was a real zombie apocalypse with real stakes, and it wasn't just a, kind of comedy. So very similar to Shaun of the Dead in that respect, which is like one of my favorite movies of all time. Hat off to Edgar Wright, who's a fantastic director. He's great. And Simon Pegg and everyone, they did a great job. No, honestly, I really wanted the PG-13. If we were going for the hard R, there would have been about 50,000 times more cursing. As you referenced previously, like punky with the word bitch, like trust me, that's the tip of the iceberg. And our vernacular, especially back then, was a bit more crass. So I feel like we would have thrown a lot more F-bombs, a lot more, shit and stuff like that. That would have, I think, would have raised the rating level for it. And I really wanted to stay away from that just to make it accessible because, again, this is supposed to appeal to anime fans, cosplayers, and while that community has fans of all ages, I didn't want, younger kids to not be able to have access to the media. And when we filmed it initially 10 years ago, the landscape of streaming was, Netflix, and that was your one-stop shop, and it wasn't really big. So, the rating system meant so much more back then, where now, I don't know who's age checking when you're on the streaming service. If something's R or PG-13, you kind of have access to everything.
Hermione. And I went into the theater when the movies were coming out dressed as Hermione. I'm pretty sure I brought my broomstick too because, of course, Hermione didn't even fly on a broomstick. I don't think, maybe once or twice in the end of the books in a rescue mission. But yeah, I also would create my own character. So I had a whole nother wizarding community where my family, quote unquote, lived, and I'd added in my character with Ron and Harry and Hermione. I was a huge Harry Potter nerd, still will be. But yeah, I've enjoyed a lot of cosplays. I would say my favorite one was Ryuko Matoi from Kill la Kill. If there's any anime fans listening, I got to cosplay her a couple times, and I found that because she is an anime character or anime girl that has a ton of attitude, when people were photographing or videoing me or interacting with me as Ryuko, it was a lot more fun than a Princess Peach. Oh, she's cute, and we want to get a video or a photo with Ryuko Matoi. There was always attitude coming right back at me too. So I found that one to be the most fun. I did Daenerys Targaryen as well in the heyday of Game of Thrones. So that at Comic-Con, pretty epic. But you also kind of, if you're doing a main character that's of a popular series of the time, you're also going to have a lot of other cosplayers do the same character. Fun for group meetups and for, doing photos and videos together. But when you do a character that, their series hasn't been out, it's been out for a decade plus, or it's not as popular, it's a little bit more fringe, I think that that's a more fun cosplay. Mm-hmm. Well, she does already have a Goku outfit. So thanks to Grandpa, she's already got her very first one. And technically, she is already cosplayed as Superman because that one was included with her wardrobe. Not on my registry, but the things that come in, they surprise you.
But I've got a whole host of ideas for the cosplay potential is endless. So basically, I'm through the ages, we'll through any number of cosplay that will fit her character. I all Saiyan Pod, and I would have her be carry her in a backpack Saiyan Pod and have her be like Vegeta or something. I don't know if I'll be allowed to do that, but a Nezuko could also be cool, especially if she gets a little bit older, 3 or 4. I'm I've got to get one of those box backpacks and put her in there to be a Nezuko.
Okay, but you have to share the main one that you've been talking about. Have you seen a movie with Reese Witherspoon and Vince Vaughn, 4 Christmases?
Yes, it's just.
Okay, Kyle has been going on and on that he wants, because Halloween's coming up, and of all the possible characters that we could dress our baby girl in for the first one, he wants her to be baby Jesus. For me to be Reese Witherspoon playing Mary in the film, and of course, Vince Vaughn playing Jesus.
Joseph.
Joseph, rather.
Yeah. With the swaddle, It's kind of like the Mecca for cons. Now, if you're more of an anime fan, I would recommend Anime Expo in Los Angeles, just because it's a totally anime-centric con. If you're more into Marvel, DC, just you want a more varied degree of fandoms, Comic-Con. Another fantastic one on the West Coast is LA Comic-Con, which is, I think, coming up in the next couple of months. And that's a fantastic con itself. It's very similar to Comic-Con in the way that they have a tiered genre set where you can kind of find a little bit of everything. And it's got a huge attendance. So the vendors are all over the place, big corporate sponsors. So you get the big, blow up Goku hanging from the ceiling and, all the fun interactive stuff that really only comes when the big companies, spend, I don't know how much money they spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars on advertising and promotional material, which makes it awesome for the fans. So, yeah.
And then Dragon Con here in Atlanta, we're actually going to be at the end of this month for a panel, probably also going in cosplay, of course, and filming cosplay videos. But we'll have a panel for ZombieCon Vol.1 with an extended trailer and Q&As with filmmakers and cast. So that's another really great one if you're in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's a little bit anime centric, but they do have a little bit of everything. And we actually, when we moved to Atlanta, made sure that our trip coincided with the con. So we made sure we got here literally like the day before the con started. So like if we're going to be moving across the country, we need something to look forward to. And so that was kind of like our, prize or for across the country in like 3 days or however long it took, which it's a heck of a drive. I do not recommend it. I thought that it was hard filming a movie. I can't imagine how difficult it has been for her. She has strength that I can't comprehend. Taking care of Anya, breastfeeding the entire time while, in one hand and sending out a million different reach outs in the other with the phone. So please take it away.
It has been quite an interesting journey because it kind of coincided with Anya being still in her newborn phase and releasing our first feature film. And we're lucky that our distributor, Level 33 Entertainment, they're fantastic. They've done some marketing and promotion and have a publicist in-house. But for the most part, it's also been on us to get the word out there. And so I've kind of attacked it with a couple different prongs, if you will. I've gone for straight film critics, Rotten Tomato, like big publications, and also the YouTube film review community. And really the most responsive and no judgment, but the most awesome so far has been finding people on Instagram. And whether that's their main profile where they share their reviews or just their social media for their other podcasts, websites, what have you, people have been so much more responsive to direct messaging them and reaching out and saying, hey, I'm Erin Anya, I'm co-writer, producer of this awesome film that is a tiny indie that we don't want to get lost in the sea of blockbusters out there. And it just got released across all these major platforms. If you're interested in a private screener, would love to send it to you. And just, I don't even know quite how, and especially because in the middle of the night has been most of the time I've been finding people, because that's when she's asleep especially. So it's been a lot of, like you said, hashtags, anything from film critic, movie reviews, now streaming. But then also just, it's an amazing community that I've now found where once you start meeting and talking with a couple film critics, you then, through just their friends or their comments or their community reaching out, and it's like everyone's interconnected and everyone knows everyone. So that's been helpful as well. But yeah, it's a lot of cold emails, cold DMs. And when you work so hard on a project and it's something that people are going to love, you don't want it to get lost in the sea out there. So just a lot of outreach, kind of nonstop marathon style outreach. But I'm very fortunate that you responded and we find ourselves here today. So thank you.
Volume 2 actually takes place after a time skip that was brought on by necessity because of the 10-year post-production journey that we went through on this film. It'd be a little awkward if we tried to start up the moment we last left our characters, because everyone has, although you've all aged beautifully, it's a bit. So it takes up maybe 10 years later, and it could be dependent upon when we get that film made, but it deals with more serious issues and raises the stakes because, of course, if we're able to get a Volume 2 funded, the budget will hopefully be a little larger than $60,000, which will allow me to have a lot more creative flexibility with the zombie attacks and basically everything. But the characters go through a huge metamorphosis. Claire is kind of coming to terms with the gravitas of what she has done and the guilt of turning basically half the world into the zombies and the chaos that has been unleashed because of this. Society as we know it has crumbled, and our characters are now living in a basically like my favorite arc in any zombie movie, right? The makeshift city where, it's tents, it's recommissioned vehicles that are built into housing things, and everything's kind of, how are we getting our water? It's dehumidifiers and other types of basically redesigning society from the ground up after the collapse. And then of course there's a huge zombie attack which wipes all that out and sets our characters back on a huge journey
Naturally.
and then the other characters are also dealing with the problems that were kind of alluded to at the end of the first movie. Javier is still his, robust fighting shape and still kind of playing a little bit of a backseated role in regards to personally interjecting his thoughts into the team and is kind of that strong, silent type. Punky and Rocket are a little bit at odds, especially with Claire, because Mama Bear, as alluded to at the end of the movie, where she is alive but a zombie, they've actually kept her for 10 years. So they've been trying to find a way to cure her because, of course, I feel like I'm giving way too much away, but with the change that happens at the end of the movie, there could be a possible solution to change Mama Bear back. And Rocket is very hesitant to give up that change. But the people in their community, if they found out they were keeping a zombie as a pet, would have a very big problem with this. So it's all these interlaced story points that are drawn against the backdrop of a giant zombie invasion and like a whole new set of problems brought on by the stones and the advancement of those stones within the arc of the film themselves. And I'll end it with my favorite new addition to the script, which is the flyers, which I call them. They use agro drones, so like large industrial scale drones to fly into battle. And Claire is the leader of this group of women, because the frailer you are, the skinnier you are, the lighter you are, the farther distance you'll get out of those drones. And they each have a specific flyer, and they basically drop death from above onto the zombie hordes. And that's I would love to be able to turn that into a reality.
Oh, I'm so ready.
It's all comes down to financing and budgetary restraints. I mean, if I had a bank account with 20 zeros in it, you'd already have 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, regardless of it, whether anyone watched it. And so the timeline is super dependent upon basically finding funding. Finding funding for the first one was, I think, as almost every indie filmmaker especially will say, is nearly impossible. Like, that's the hardest hurdle to overcome. But once you find that funding, you can really get the gears kind of rolling. So once this movie is we're done with the promotion arc and we see where that goes, we'll be able to start talking to investors and showing the potential of what a future franchise can be, and then hopefully be able to get the wheels on and start rolling. Because pre-production, in regards to how it's built out, it's all up here. I just have to know what our budget is and then nail it down.
I really like what you said as well. And it reminded me, Glenn, of what we were talking about right before the podcast started with parenting. And you shared, because you have 2 sons who are no longer in the baby phase, but still quite young. And Kyle had asked you, does it ever get easier? And you replied, well, no, but you adapt. And so every single, phase you're in seems like the hardest and previously seems easier. It's kind of similar when it comes to filmmaking. As Kyle was just saying, getting the funding is near impossible, but you do it. And then somehow you string it together and you keep your sanity during production and you keep plugging all of the potholes that come up and you get through production. You make it through post-production. For us, it took a lot longer than most people. You meet different challenges you didn't expect. But if you can keep going, you do. And then you find yourself where we're now with the marketing and wanting to make sure that this film gets out there so that we can not only share it with the world, but get to make more sequels. Every phase is kind of its own challenge that you just adapt. So hopefully, just like the other phases, we will conquer this one and be moving forward. And, in a couple of years, we say, oh my God, that was the most easy part. The marketing, the getting the funding for Vol 2, 3, breeze. So you can catch ZombieCon Vol.1 basically wherever movies are sold. It's on streaming, all the major VOD platforms, Apple TV, Prime Movies, YouTube Movies, Fandango at Home, Vudu, Plex, you name it. But if you go to our website, specifically, which is ZombieCon Vol1, the number 1.com, we have the links to all of those places as well. So we'll keep that updated along with the trailer and all the good stuff. And our socials are at ZombieCon Movie. And thank you so much, Glenn, for having us on. We really appreciate it. This has been so much fun.
Now that the world is on fire, let there be no doubt. There is a point for all of those free of this curse to join us. Go to your room, Mom.
Why don't you stick around? We'd love to have you for dinner.